Well, greetings and welcome to another one of these shows that started as a dare, moved on to maybe a bit of a prank, and now it's actually turning into a thing. I think we're calling it the Tales from the Late Show with David Letterman. My name is Mike Chisholm, Letterman, unabashed Letterman enthusiast, and I'm very excited to have another amazing guest that loves all things David Letterman, just like I do. This is a really cool guest. I'm extremely excited about this guest because this guest not only is a fan like me and enjoys sharing stories and anecdotes and memories like I do, but he actually went a step further and he wrote a damn book about Dave. And it's a different book. It's not like the biographies that you can get out there. It's not like The Late Shift by Bill Carter, all excellent publications. This one here is a little bit different. It is Scott Ryan is on the show today, and he wrote a book called The Last Days of Letterman. I first found out about this book when I was just kind of cruising around online a couple years after Dave retired. I saw it. I looked at the premise of it, which we'll talk about here in a minute, which is, by the way, a different premise than any other Letterman publication that I have seen. And I was blown away by it. I immediately bought the book on a digital version of the book. And after reading the book, I was energized. I was excited about my fandom for Dave, about other people who have the same kind of fandom. Because at the end of the day, this book is a love letter to those who appreciated Dave. And we really still haven't gotten over the fact that he has retired from The Late Show. Scott Ryan is a guy that when I read this book, I reached out to him and immediately got back to me. And we had a really cool dialogue where I could share some of my story of my experience with Dave. And it was a really cool dialogue. And it was so impactful to me that I actually went and bought a hard copy of the book. He signed it and sent it to me. It was amazing. Scott Ryan, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you've written a bunch of books, but this one's really close to your heart. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here with us and to talk a little bit about The Last Days of Letterman.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I like that build up. Unfortunately, I can't live up to it. So I don't know what I can do about that.
I don't know what to tell you, man. You read the book. If someone were to read the book, that would 100%, they would know that every word that I said, there was nothing that was hyperbolous about anything that I just said there. But we can agree to disagree on that. What we can agree on is Dave Letterman is the man. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Dave is my TV friend. He is the only TV friend I ever had. I didn't have one before Dave, and I most certainly have not had one after Dave. Every day that was part of the ritual of my life for well over 20 years.
I loved how you explained that in the book, and we can get into the premise of the book in a second here, but the idea that, you're a writer, but you're also doing some other vocations as well. And the fact is you had a DVR that was somebody else's property. That DVR had the last 6 weeks worth of Letterman's on it. And you were going to give that DVR back. And so you decided to say, you know what, I'm going to watch all 6 weeks of the last 6 weeks of The Late Show before I give this thing back. Charming, to say the least. Was that where the idea for the book came from?
That's where the idea reemerged.
Okay.
Honestly, and I like how you said I had to give it back. I was fired from a major corporation, and part of the benefit of the corporation was I got free cable and a free DVR, and I'd be damned if I was going to give those slimy bastards any of my money. So I was like, I'm canceling my cable from you. You have downsized me to send my jobs overseas, which, I'm like, I'm not paying them. So I'm like, take my cable back. And then I realized, oh crap, I never deleted the last 6 weeks of Letterman because I just could not delete those episodes.
Yes.
So I did rewatch them, and that sparked the book again. But honestly, the idea for the book came that night, the last night that I watched the last show, because I had questions about it. I wanted to know how they did what they did that night in that
Right.
final episode. And I just pestered the living hell out of Barbara Gaines for, I believe it was like 2 years. It might have even been longer. Just trying to get an interview with her and I just needed to know, because you're right. I don't know if you said this beforehand or just now, but it was different from anything that had been on TV.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that, it was as the book shows, it was a culmination. And it really built up to that last show. And that last show, I mean, I've never seen a more perfect series finale. It was perfect. It was so wonderfully crafted. And part of the reason it was so perfectly crafted was the buildup that came towards it. You have the interviews logged as to when you perform the interviews with the current, or with the cast and the producers of the Late Show, all the principals that were in behind the scenes of the Late Show. Barbara was one of the very first, if not the first interview you did. Was that the key to getting this book written? The conversation with her, was that the thing that started this whole process and making it possible?
100%. Yeah, I mean, really, if it wasn't for Barbara Gaines, this book would not exist. It's totally because of Barbara Gaines. And like I said, what I would do, so I think the next morning I tweeted Barbara Gaines.
Okay.
And I said, because I'd read an article that said she was in charge of the end montage.
Yep.
I used to be a videographer, and I did a lot of videos in my day. To match music to picture takes a ton of work.
Yes.
And they did it live. They had a live band, and it matched. And while I was going through the emotion of losing my best friend, my brain was like, that's impossible. You can't play a video to a live thing. Like, that's just how my brain works with TV. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I wanted to know how this happened. So I tweeted Barbara Gaines the morning after. Obviously, she was busy. She was also losing her job.
Yes.
No response. And over the next 2 years, like a good stalker, whenever she would tweet, so if I would see Barbara Gaines tweet, and let's say it said 7 hours ago, well, then I didn't care. But if that would say 2 minutes ago, no matter what the tweet was, and she's not a big tweeter, so you got to wait months, I would say, can I interview you about the end montage of Letterman? And she would do nothing. No response. That was about a year. I would say year and a half, she started liking them. She liked my comment that said, I want to interview about the montage. And I would say to friends, like, what is like? I said, can I interview? And she liked it. Now, she didn't say yes. She didn't say, here's my number. She didn't say, here's my email. She liked it. And I thought, it's nice that she likes it.
Right.
But I need more than that.
Yes.
And in this time, I was working on other projects, and it would go away. But I never gave up. And I would only do it because I thought, I have to catch her right when she's online, or she's not going to see that this idiot is stalking her, asking her about this montage. And I honestly,
2 years after the fact.
Yeah, it was in probably July 2017.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it was July 2017. She responded yes.
How did that feel?
Well, I was actually, and it's funny, I can tell you this. In all my interviews, I have not told this, but I can tell.
All right.
I was in Snoqualmie, Washington.
Oh, cool.
For a Twin Peaks event, because I do a magazine about Twin Peaks. I was covering Twin Peaks. And while I'm there, I got a yes from Barbara Gaines. And I was over the moon. Now, she didn't give me her email. She didn't follow me, so I couldn't send her a message. She didn't, there was nothing else. I just had the yes. But I was like, I'm getting her,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
In all the times we've talked, I don't think I ever asked her about my stalking for 2.5 years.
Yeah. What did she think about you? What was the impression that was given?
I'm not sure. But then I think after like 2 weeks later, like I kept responding to the yes, like you have to follow me and then we'll set something up. And I think eventually she followed and we started to be able to Twitter message. And I just remember in the middle of all this Twin Peaks stuff where I was supposed to be doing other things, my head was 100% Letterman. Like, I think I'm going to get her. And she did tell me later it was that I was asking about the montage because to her, that's the pinnacle of her career.
And if you've seen the montage, I think most people who are watching this, certainly who have stuck around this far into the broadcast, would say
This
that they
far,
have
what have I
probably
been
seen it.
boring? Have I been boring this far that
No, no,
you're
no, not
expecting
not to
people
me.
have
I'm
dropped
riveted,
off?
man. Oh man, I'm riveted. I can hear. Oh, this is amazing to me. But my goodness, that montage. It wasn't just that it was a live video to and pictures to live music. The Foo Fighters playing a different version of that song to extend out for all the pictures. It was how fast the pictures were going. Like,
Yeah.
that was the crazy part. And certain parts there would be a pause in the montage to show a little bit of video rather than pictures, or hear Farrah Fawcett say something or whatever it is. And it matched, like you say, perfectly. So, and when you go through the book, when she gets to that part, it's very specific, talking about that montage. And there's a lot of drama, a surprising amount of drama that doesn't include the sentimentality of there being the last show. She must have been thrilled that somebody noticed, I would think.
Well, I think honestly, I think that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when we got on the phone, she was weary, which is
Yep.
understandable. You're meeting a stranger,
Yep.
and you know, she's trusting me to see. I think, yeah, by then my 30 something book would have been published. And I know that I sent it to her. And I don't remember if I sent it after our first talk or before, but I
Right.
wanted her to know that I had a credit. You know,
Yeah.
I was someone. I wasn't, you know, out
There's
to
some
get
credibility
anyone.
there.
Yeah, you know, I
Yep.
mean, I at least because I do remember sending her the 30 something book
Right.
so she could see kind of what I focus on and how my work focuses on art, not personality, not people's backgrounds, things like that.
Right.
And she did say, you know, I want to talk about this montage. And I think we talked for like 50 minutes only about the montage. You know, she
Wow.
just broke down the whole story for me. And we didn't even get into the final 6 weeks at that point. At that point, I didn't know what the book was really going to be.
Right.
But at that same time, I had watched those final 6 weeks and I thought, these are really good because it had been about 2 years at that point.
Right.
And so the world had totally changed.
Yeah.
100%. The world had flipped in 2016.
Yes.
And when I watched these episodes, I was like, this is a moment in history. And you know, I always compare it to Jurassic Park, where Newman finds the the little frozen thing in the sap.
Yep.
That's what the final 6 weeks of the Letterman show is. It's encased in sap that it's a little flaw, it's a little DNA, and Newman is carrying it around in a frozen thing. And I got to look inside and I was like, that's American history. And
Yes.
depending on which way you look at it, either way, it's the end of a part of American history,
Yes.
either the large part or a small part. And that's what really started it.
I know you and I both we share we have the memory of the ramp up to when Johnny Carson left, of course, Dave's mentor. And it's funny how, you know, Dave would always you know, lift Johnny Carson up and call him, you know, I think even when Regis just passed away, he compared the two and he used the word superlative. And certainly Johnny's last little run on the Tonight Show was memorable. There's no question. But I look at the last 6 weeks of David Letterman, And not just, again, because I had an experience in that time where I was on the show and I had a brief interaction with him, and so it's close to my heart that way. But I just look at all of those episodes, and as I've reread your book recently, every single one of them seemed to have a little bit of extra juice to them, a little bit of energy there, and that magic that was in the Carson episodes. I think if it was sprinkled in the Carson episodes, it was poured onto the last of the Late Show episodes. Like, I don't know if there has been a ramp up to the finale of a series ever that was that magical.
Well, I think that Bill Sheff is the one that pointed it out to me. And as someone who was studying it, I probably should have seen it before him. But he said Letterman is the only talk show host ever to quit on his own terms. He was not forced out.
Right.
No one ever has had that ability. And to me, that is, because it's going to be hard for you and I to judge the Carson episodes versus the Letterman
Sure.
episodes. It's going to be hard because we grew up with Dave more than we grew up with Johnny.
Yes.
But to me, that one little tick that there was this thing hanging over Johnny that he had been fired. I mean, he really had. Like, people don't like to talk about it, but honestly, Johnny Carson was thrown out of NBC like he was nothing.
He was ousted.
Yeah.
In the most classy way possible.
And I think that tick makes the difference.
Yeah.
And some people did create art for the last 6 weeks. Like, I think of Steve Martin's Flydini.
Mm-hmm.
There was some, but there was so much preparation for Letterman.
Yeah.
Even down to the musical guests and everything. Carson just didn't have that.
Yes. So let's bring it back in that you're talking to Barbara Gaines, who executive producer. She is Dave's executive producer, right?
Right. Yeah.
And had been, I think, either the second or the third longest standing employee, might even be the longest standing employee with Dave. She was there all the way since the morning show.
Her and Jude
Brennan. Yeah. And the idea that so you talk to her about this montage, move into a couple other things. And then suddenly it seems that, was she the keystone that said, okay, well, yeah, you should talk to so-and-so. And then you should talk to so-and-so, and you should talk to so-and-so. And suddenly you're interviewing, it was what, 25 or more?
Yeah.
People behind
it was all Barbara. So within that talk, she said that I should talk to Sheila Rogers.
Yep.
Because Sheila ended up booking the Foo Fighters. Again, everything started around that montage.
Right.
That's where it was. And Sheila Rogers had never given an interview ever. And Sheila Rogers wouldn't talk to me. It would never happen. But Barbara sends her an email and says, look, this guy's interested in the montage.
Right.
He wants to talk to you about getting the Foo Fighters and stuff like that. And Sheila, I think, was my second one.
Okay.
And she's the one that starts off the whole book by saying, I'm regretting this already. That's the first thing she said to me. And I thought it was the most Letterman thing to say.
100%.
Like, we started on the phone and I said, hey, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. And she said, I'm regretting this already. And she wasn't being funny. I mean, She was regretting it already.
No.
And as a Letterman fan, like, I recognize the tone. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people have been trained in comedy by Dave, whether they know it or not. They may not be Jerry Seinfeld, but they are trained in comedy from the master.
Yes. The tone is very evident with many of the people in the book, and many of them, even though they are their own characters and they do have their own certain flair to them, it was a family. And if the book makes anything plain and clear, it's that group of people that you talk to, which is a significant portion of people who work for Worldwide Pants, were a tight-knit family. And I can't imagine that, if I've gone through a change in life, a change in career, things like that, I haven't been able to give it a post-mortem like this. Have you heard back from many of the of the people who were involved in the book? Have any of them read it? Have any of them said anything? Or are they all like Dave in the sense where they just kind of move on and they don't look back on things that they've done?
Well, a little bit of both.
Okay.
So as far as like being like Dave, I will say, and I think this is true, I don't think anyone has complimented me on the book who was in it.
Okay.
But to me, that's very Letterman. And it was the same when I was going through this. So I had two people fact check the book for me.
Mm-hmm.
One was Shecky, because he knows everything. Rick Sheckman,
Yep.
he came a little bit after Barbara, but not a lot after Barbara, and he knew everything. So he fact checked the book for me. And then Barbara Gaines, if she approved it, I was like, look, it's, I'm good with it. They were always matter of fact, but they were never flowery. Nobody saw anything and was like, great job. Oh, Scott, how'd you do it? None of that. And I sort of like that too, because again, I was raised by Dave. So
Yeah.
I don't like that attitude either. I mean, it was hard for me while you were praising the book to not make fun of it and make fun of myself, because that's my nature. So I felt right at home. But that being said, we did do an event at the 92nd Y in 2019, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Close in April, I think it was April 2019, and all of them showed up. They were all on the panel with me. It was Barbara Gaines and Brian Tetta, who's such a great guy.
Yeah.
Brian's super nice, and Shecky was there, and I mean, just a ton of people. I feel bad, I shouldn't have mentioned anyone because I'm not going to be able to remember everyone, but a lot of them. And to me, that was them saying, we love the book.
Yeah.
And we're there to support you, which was great. Bill Carter actually was the moderator of that evening.
That is, you and I were emailing back and forth by that point, and you had told me that it was happening or it had just happened, and I was blown away by that. Bill Carter, I mean, my copy of the original copy of The Late Shift is dog-eared. Right. I got it way back in the day. I was in my early 20s, and to have him there, and be a part of an event that you did with that as a Letterman fan. I guess this is a question I was building up for. I was going to ask you later, but I'm going to ask it to you now. Are you glad that you didn't interview Dave? Like, I know that was something. I think you even mentioned in the book that it was something that you were looking at or whatever, and you said you never got to interview him. Would you have wanted to interview him? And if you did, what were some of the questions you would have asked him?
Well, and it's funny because that is by far the number one question I've been asked with this book. I'm glad I didn't interview Dave. Yep. I never wanted to interview Dave. I never asked anyone for Dave. Okay. Not one time.
Okay.
I asked for the cue card boy.
Yep.
It's been a while for me, so I feel horrible with names. I should have said it. Who's Todd?
Todd, yep.
I wanted Todd so badly. I wanted Todd, and I never got him.
Okay.
So I asked for Todd and I asked for Jude. I wanted Jude so much. Yeah. And then she just didn't want to do it. She just said no. And I met Jude the night of that 92nd Y event, and I had a nice moment with Jude, and she said, I am so glad you did this book, and I'm even gladder I'm not in it.
Again, a very Letterman-esque thing to say.
She said, I love having it, and she said, I would never want to be in it, and I would never talk to someone, but I'm glad it exists. And that little moment, I think I got a picture with Jude, and that moment means the world to me because I made Jude Brennan happy. What else matters?
Absolutely.
Dave's assistant was there, and she told me that Dave has the book because I sent a book through Barbara when it was done. I signed it to Dave, and I said, could you give it to Dave? And his assistant did tell me Dave has the book, and he loves that it's about the staff and not him.
Yep.
And that he loved the book, but I have like two heroes in life.
Okay.
From a superstar, celebrity standpoint. One is David Letterman, and one is Stephen Sondheim. And I've always said I don't want to meet either of them. I don't think anything good can come out of meeting your heroes.
Yeah,
I think Dave would have been a great interview. Yes, of course I would have interviewed him.
of course.
Of course. But I don't think he could have brought anything to the book. I'm not being mean, but that's not what this book is about. This book is about working at a corporation your whole life and losing that job. That's what
Yes.
this book is honestly about. It's
Yep.
not really about the final 28 episodes.
Yep.
What you really find, I think it's a lot about small business in America
Hmm.
and the squashing of small business by corporate America. I mean, I don't know if you see that at all, but to me, that's what the book's about, because Worldwide Pants was a super, super small company.
Yes.
They did something incredible, but it was a small company that was self-contained. It had nothing to do with CBS. That's why I interviewed the HR lady, which I love that
Yep.
she's in the book, and she gave me really interesting perspectives. And to me, that's what my book was about. So Letterman, he wasn't losing his job. I mean, he was, but not really. He's the president. He's the
Yeah.
top. He's
Yes.
going to be just fine.
Yeah. I do see that parallel being a subtext to the book. Like I think that that's the beautiful thing about a book like this, where there are so many layers to it. You know, there's a whole bunch of goodbyes that were happening in this book. There's the fan perspective, and I'm going to say it again. If you were a fan of what Dave did, and you felt that magic as he was leaving, and that sentimentality that was there, this is the book for you. Okay. If you want to know some behind the scenes stuff, and how people felt about certain things and certain bits or certain events that happened in that last 6 weeks, this is the book for you. But there is a much broader theme, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad that you're not so humble that you wouldn't bring that up, because there are definitely broader themes within the book that make you feel, and those are the things that I love. I love when I connect to a book where it really makes me feel something and it really makes me think about something. This will never happen again in television. It
No.
may happen somewhere on the internet where somebody like David Letterman owned 2 hours on CBS on weeknights on a major network for 20 years.
And
They gave
you
it to
know,
him
you
to
could
establish
say,
a new brand, and he did it. And
well,
that will
yeah, I
never
mean,
happen again.
yeah, and you can say that Dick Wolf owns Law and Order or
Yep.
something like that,
Yep.
but he doesn't employ everyone who comes down. I mean, to
Yep.
me, that's where the book gets fascinating, where they, you know, the HR ladies talking about how they had to offer all the packages to everyone. CBS isn't offering any package. And then Colbert's people are coming in and they're filling this area, but now it's CBS HR people, not Worldwide Pants's, you know,
Yes.
all the way down to the janitor or, you know, the grip, the lighting guys. They were employed by a company.
Yes.
And that, you're right, it's incredible. It happened once,
Yep.
and there's no way it'll ever happen. No one will have that kind of power in
No.
television.
Absolutely not. And a gamble by CBS, but the gamble for them was, now when you look at the legacy, I mean, the Late Show, its infancy was getting Dave over and offering him all of these carrots to do that. But what did CBS get in return? Not only did they have the legendary David Letterman for 20 years, not only did they get themselves to build, maybe without a few stumps in the road, but a second brand, you know, at 12:30 with the Late Late Show. But now, once, I think I read in an interview with I think it was in the New York Times, but Dave was finishing up, and they said, "Well, are you in business with CBS?" And no, we're no longer in business with CBS. So what did CBS get? They got themselves 2 shows which happen to be higher rated than the competition now, and a foothold in late night, because that did not exist before the Late Show. It was the Tonight Show, and that was it. Now CBS actually has 2 legacy programs and a foothold within the industry, and that is remarkable. And it's all on the back of Dave. But Dave would be the first to say that he's not just Dave. It's also the Worldwide Pants team around him and the team that he assembled to do this. And it was astonishing that they were able to build this.
Well, and I love that it was mostly women
Yeah.
who ran it.
Yep.
And I loved that it all, everyone I talked to, of course, their admiration for Dave was off the charts.
Yep.
Of course it's going to be. But they all said they took their cues from Barbara and Jude.
Wow.
That's where the corporation rang down. Yeah. And that to me means so much. And I got that from Barbara. She, like I said, she didn't give me hugs, let's call it.
Sure.
But she opened all those doors for me. That's much more better than saying, great question, Scott. Like, what does that do for you? But she said, no, talk to this guy. He actually really loves the show. He knows the episodes. Interested in what you do. And I also never asked one person about David Letterman, ever. I never asked, in 25 interviews, I'd never asked them about Dave. I only asked them about them and their job and what their morning was like, what their afternoon was like, what their task was. Yeah. And by never asking them about Dave, they poured stories about Dave because they knew I was interested in them, and their job was taking care of David Letterman. That was everyone's job. And that's how you get that's how you get a good interview, is pretending that you're interested in them, like you're doing right now with me. You're pretending so much that you're interested in me. And here I'm telling you my secrets.
Well, I'm glad. That was a great segue, because that's where I'm going next. So you talk to some of these people, and you over 28 shows. Okay, so you chronicle, you do a fantastic job chronicling the last 28 shows, with some very cool pit stops along the way. So there's a chapter about the top 10 list. There's chapters about remotes and certain members of the staff, like Biff and other of the people that we love, the people where Dave would pull back behind the curtain and make these people stars, or Rupert, or some of these other things. But you go through these shows. So you're interviewing Bill Sheff, for example. How many times would you have talked to this guy? And do you go through the 28 shows and ask each one of them if they have a memory of each one? I can't see you doing that. Like, how in the world did you get information on all of the different shows and were able to assemble it the way that you did? It's remarkably done.
Thank you very much. That is the hard work of doing an oral history, but I love it. So I had a printout that had all 28 shows with all the guests. Yep. And it would depend who they were. So Mike Basinski, yep. I really should have looked at people's names ahead of time.
The other talent, he's the other talent guy. You got the political people, like he was the guy who got the president and whatnot, right?
Yeah. Yep. So I knew he booked Obama. He yep. booked Clinton. I didn't ask Brian Teta about that. Like, part of it is knowing what they're going to do, okay. And so a lot of that was how Shecky really helped me, because he would sort of say, this is the person that does this. And I'm like, I got it. So focus on this. If I talk to the stage manager, it's obviously you're gonna get stories about how Jack Hanna's gonna bring out the animals.
Right.
So to ask him that. I asked him about, setting the stage for the big Raining Men, because yes. they're going to do things in between. You know what I mean? Because I knew the show. So yeah, to go through all 28 episodes would have been a lot.
Yeah.
With each person. Because you pretty much have, after an hour, they're getting tired. I mean, you want to get it done in an hour. Like Barbara Gaines, I talked to a couple times. And Bill Sheff, I talked to a couple times.
Yep.
Everyone else, I tried to do in one with follow-up emails. Obviously, if I talked to someone else and they said, you know, oh my gosh, did Brian Tedda tell you about the handcuffs with George Clooney? And I'm like, no, we didn't get to that. Then you would be like, what happened with the handcuffs?
Yeah, time for a follow-up. Yep.
And you'd get some emails that way. And I just remembered that with Mike Basinski, it didn't tape the whole interview. I lost the whole interview and we had to do it again. I felt so horrible. It's the
Oh,
only time
no.
that's ever happened to me in all the interviews for all my books. I just lost it. I don't know what happened to it, but he was very kind. So I think I have a special thanks in there that I think I said something like, I wrote a special thanks to you, but I deleted it or something. I think I made a joke.
Throw an inside
In
joke
some
in
way.
there. Yeah.
But that's basically how I did it, was kind of knowing what their job is and then going through that.
You mentioned his name a few times, and if there was anybody on that or in the cast of characters of this book, who are the staff of the Late Show and Worldwide Pants, if there was anybody that I related to more than anyone else, it would probably be Brian Tedda. I have boundless enthusiasm. I'm an optimist. I'm excitable, and it just, for some reason, I related to that guy, and I felt like that's exactly how he is. It looked like he came to this project with a lot of gratefulness and excitement. Would you characterize him as being that way, or am I off base in how I read him?
No, that's 100%. And he was so down to earth, and he would say over and over that, you know, that we were similar. We had a similar way in. It's interesting for me because when I was 19 and 20, I loved Dave.
Yeah.
But there was no part of me that thought I should go be a intern.
Right.
I should go to New York and be an intern. And of course I should have.
Yes.
And had I done that, you know, I could be the executive producer of The View. So thank God I didn't. Oh, what if I was the executive producer of The View? That would be horrible.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was interesting to hear how these people just went there because of that.
Yeah.
And so I would joke with Brian that I really felt me and him should be really good friends. And he is very nice to me. I mean, he got my wife and my daughter tickets to The View when we were in New York for that 90-second Y the next morning. He was like, come to The View. And we got to go, and it was kind of cool. I mean, he's a really, really nice guy. I'm so glad he just won his first Emmy, or an Emmy.
Yeah, he sure, many of the people in the book come across that way. I want to ask a little bit about Bill Sheft as well. For a man in the position that he was in, with the man with the reputation that David Letterman has, there's a guy who has a special, like Liam Neeson in Taken, a special set of skills. Undoubtedly, you know, he's the guy who, or during a commercial break, he's one of the first guys who comes over to talk to Dave. You know, he's going over the monologue with him beforehand. He's seeing all these private moments, but yet doesn't seem, you know, and I say this with all due respect, does not seem persnickety like Dave. What's Bill like? Was he extremely funny and dry during the interview? Was he more pointed?
It was very interesting. I think very, very early on, I contacted Bill because he's pretty much on social media.
Yep.
And he just turned me down. He said, I don't want to be a part of the book, but I wrote a blog during the last 6 weeks or whatever it was. It might have been longer. And he said, anything from that you can use. I don't care.
Yep.
So I left it be. And that was very early on. Then when I was just about done, I thought, I got almost everyone. I'm going to ask him again. And I asked him again and he said, yeah, what are you doing in 20 minutes? And I was like, what?
Oh my God.
I remember I was at lunch with someone and I was like, look, I got to go home. I have to interview Bill Sheft right now. And we talked for the longest. It might've been 3.5 hours.
Wow.
I remember his phone died. He was on a phone. He had to call me back.
Yep.
And I mean, it just poured out of him. And he was so funny. And probably my favorite part of the whole book was that I made him laugh for real.
Yep.
like a real laugh. And he actually said to me, "That's a honey of a joke."
Oh.
And I
Oh.
have that little sound clip, and I don't listen to it very often, but I have listened to it.
Oh, that
And
is
it was so
yeah.
good. And I mean, this is kind of a bad story because I don't remember the joke, which is real bad, but
Mm-hmm.
it was off color.
Yep.
It was a little dangerous.
Yep.
And while he was telling me this, he's talking, and I'm like, huh. The joke came, and I was like, I'm like, he's a comic. Everything should be fine.
Yep.
And I went for the joke, and he just howled. And I was just so proud of myself because it was like, should I? I'm never going to have this chance again. I've got to. I mean, it was something, I know it was Hitler based,
Okay.
but I just can't remember the joke. I mean, it wasn't a bad joke, but in 2020, every comic thing you
For
say
the
is bad.
outrage culture portion of where
Right,
we're at right now, the PC movement. Yeah,
right.
I hear you.
But I figured from a comics perspective, it should be fine. And I was like, I got to go for it. So I mean, all due respect to having a book and all those things, making Bill Sheff say that's a honey of a joke,
Yep.
it was good.
Yeah, that would make my year if he said the same thing to me. From what I get out of that answer, so Scott Ryan, a little off color and a little dangerous. I like it.
Yes, yes. Oh, more than you could even know. I consistently say, but it's sort of like, Dave, we're just having fun. We're just playing.
Absolutely.
I'm just taking shots at Joaquin Phoenix. We're just playing.
Yep. Just
And
doing a couple rounds
then
on the speed bag. I think
he
he
did
said
such a
about
good
that.
job telling stories that I was like, I'm going to ask him to do the foreword for the book. And like, what kind of jerk? I asked him once, he said no. I asked him again, he says yes. And then I asked him to do the foreword. And I think he said he had to think about it.
Yep.
And then I think he sent it. Like, I don't know if he ever said yes. And it was so good. I also remember reading that in Snoqualmie, which is kind of strange, but not that strange because I'm there a lot. Or used to be there used to be a thing called travel, and we used to be able to go to different places from where you live.
Oh, I remember
Crazy
that. That
time.
was great.
Yeah, it was crazy time. And I remember there's a crappy hotel in Twin Peaks where bad things happen.
Sure.
Not the nice one, but there's a bad, a real
Yeah.
seedy hotel. And I read Bill Sheff's foreword to the book in that hotel because it came in my email. And I was just like, I remember turning to my wife and saying, I hope I have a book that can live up to this foreword. Because,
Oh.
I was like, this is good. And like, he's really sharing.
Well, from a large, a very big Letterman fan, I would say that the book not only lived up to the foreword, but the foreword, I remember reading it for the first time digitally. And I remember reading it going, oh my God, this is amazing. Like just seeing, like, because again, they pulled the curtain back, but they pulled the curtain back just enough that we all wanted to go back there with them, you
Right.
know? And Bill was one of those guys. And to hear Bill talking about things, it was one of those things where I'm reading it and it whet the appetite so beautifully for the book. And the book not only lived up to it, but exceeded. It was just, again, I can't gush enough about it. And it is from the heart. We can joke about it as much as we want. But it is such an amazing book. I know that I can talk with you for hours about this stuff, but we are going to curb it. One thing that I will tell you about the book, an observation, you devoted a part of a chapter to Rupert.
Yeah.
And in the book, I read it and I read it again. And I thought it both times, the first two times I read it. And then this last weekend, I read most of it again. I had some downtime and I was going through it and I felt this feeling again. Your book caused an emotional reaction in me. And I think that it will ring true to anybody who's ever been to the Hello Deli. Because you talk about Rupert and how kind he is and all of these things. And you did such a great job talking about how people will come in and they will tell Rupert a story and how he will sit there and he will patiently listen to the story and he will respond out of the kindness and people will buy a t-shirt and they'll buy a Paul Schaefer sandwich and all that. And then, but he will sit there and listen to people's stories. And both times that I went to New York, I told Rupert a story. And when I read it in the book, I'm like, God damn, he got me. Yeah, that's exactly what I did And I think about the thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people over the years that he would have. Is Rupert not the greatest listener? Rupert should host the damn View, don't you think?
Well, he is so kind in a way that we're being told that we're not kind. You know, I feel like every day on social media, what we're really being told is that people aren't kind to each other. And I disagree with this wholly. I don't think it's that people are unkind. I actually think people are extremely kind. They just don't know exactly how to show it at all times. But if you really put two strangers together, they're going to behave more than they're not going to behave. That's, I mean, I honestly believe that.
Yep.
But I've watched Rupert, and he can't, you know, he can't want to hear another top 10 story, or he can't be interested in how you were in the audience that day or whatever. He can't.
Nope.
He's heard it.
Yep.
But he smiles for that picture. And well, what I thought you were going to bring up that I love is that I left in, because I interviewed him while he worked. I stopped in and I got the interview.
Is that what you were
about
thinking?
The bacon? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to go there. Yeah, absolutely.
Because because he said it, and of course I'm recording it. So then when I got home to Ohio, I'm typing it up, and he said, you know, oh, the bacon's going to burn. Yeah. And I looked at that and I was like, I'm leaving it in, because that says everything you need to know about him. And I'm the kind of writer where I don't point it out then. There's a few things in the book that I have set there, and you can get them or you cannot get them, and that's up to you. But it's not for me to fix the puzzle for you.
And the thing is, they're so accessible. And I mean, I called it. You and we didn't pre-interview where we talked about the bacon. I knew exactly what you were. That was him. And there are a lot of moments like that in the book. He's in the middle of telling you a sentence, or a story, I should say, an anecdote, going through it, and he said, "Oh, hold on, I got the bacon. I don't want to burn the bacon." So, you know, it's just, and that is so him. And everybody is like that. It's so beautiful. And I want to close her up here pretty quick, because we want to, you know, for time and whatnot. I will talk with you about Dave or Twin Peaks anytime. Scott, you're fantastic. And talk about anecdotes and kindness and how people are kind to each other. I remember reading this book in 2019 and being so excited about it. And at the end of it, trying to find more about you so I could reach out to you, because I wanted to thank you for it. And immediately the first thing I did was want to tell you my story. And I've talked about my story with my story with Letterman about making him laugh and being behind the desk and all that stuff. I've written it out and whatnot. But the first response I got back from you was, thank you for your kind words about the book. Okay, and your story, hit me. Come on, tell me your story. And that's where we're at, and that's what we're doing these days. We're all telling stories and reliving things about Dave. In the Facebook group that we're both a part of, you're seeing people who were the recipients of random phone calls on a payphone from David Letterman. And that's a special thing. We're all part of this family together. I read the digital version of the book because that's all I knew existed at that time. I bought it immediately. I wanted that instant gratification. After talking to you, I wanted to buy a hard copy of the book, and you sent it to me. And this is what you inscribed to me. You said, "To Mike, always love when I meet a fellow Letterman fan. Thanks for sharing your story with me. Thanks, Scott." And so I guess my question is this. Yeah, people can go and they can get Last Days of Letterman digitally. They can go get it online right now. But do you still have any more of these? And if you do, are you willing to do signed copies to people?
Yeah, we only have 10,000 left. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
No, actually, I am down to my last box.
Okay.
Of them. Which I mean, I think there's like 25 in there. Which, if it continues, I have this dream. Well, you want me to be quick? I just remembered that. But yes, I will sign it. No. You just,
this is our last one. Then we're gonna go out. But.
Yeah, so you can go to scottryanproductions.com or fayettevillemafiapress.com.
Okay.
Both those are my websites, and I sign all of them that way, you know, not with that, or I'll personalize it or do whatever. And we're selling them for $14.99, which is $10 off the cover price. because I really want to do a reprint. I have an idea. I have a couple ideas about incorporating the 90-second why thing as like a new beginning.
Yep.
But because we're a very small company, my company actually published the book. We have to sell out before we can do a reprint because it's very expensive, and there has to be demand to do it.
Right.
I want to show you something.
Okay.
This is the 20th Late Show book, and it's full of pictures, and you had to work for Dave to get this.
Oh my God.
And I got one in doing the book, and it's incredible. It goes through the whole, I don't know how much of this is coming up, but this is unbelievable that I got this. They only had like 2 left, and they got that. And then Shecky gave me this coat I'm wearing.
I was going to say, you got a worldwide pants coat.
Yeah, Shecky gave me this, which is, I mean, I wanted one so bad. Everyone I interviewed, I asked for one.
Yep.
Dave picked this design, so I got a worldwide pants one. He had 2 options for me. One that said late night, but it wasn't the yellow and blue, and I wanted the yellow and blue.
Absolutely.
And I wanted worldwide pants because I'd rather somebody really know it was Dave. So those are the 2 things that I got from people for doing the book. I mean, I got a book out of it too, but I mean, those things were incredible to me. I'm trying to think, I forget. Cheryl Zellickson gave me the 20th anniversary book. And when we meet in real life, I'm going to show you that book, and it's incredible.
I can't wait. I'm still on the hunt for a worldwide pants jacket myself. That was a part of the story of my story when I was in there. And that's how I got Dave's attention and got him to get everyone making fun of me, is that those jackets. I just love this. And I love the camaraderie that we as Letterman fans do have. Thank you for taking time out of your day to do this, Scott. I can't tell you how much of a thrill it is for me. And I will tell you this as well. The whole reason that I started doing these interviews, and we're going to throw them up on YouTube, on its own YouTube channel and whatnot. The whole reason I did this was because of inspiration from you, because you were as a fan and a writer, but you have this heart to go and do this. And the perseverance that you shared with us at the beginning of this interview about never taking no for an answer from Barbara, or not, taking silence for an answer, I guess would be a better way of putting it. The perseverance is inspiring. And why not? If you're passionate about something, why not go all in and do something fun with it? And you got a jacket and a book, which are amazing, but you got all these memories and conversations like this one here. And I just thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.
It is incredible.
Really appreciate
it is such a good book. I cannot recommend it enough. This, along with The Late Shift, the original Late Shift, are my 2 favorite publications in the chronicling of David Letterman. They're my 2 favorite things, and I'm a pretty big fan. So I don't know if I can give it a bigger endorsement than that. ScottRyanProductions.com. That's the website to go to.
Yes, sir. Or FayettevilleMafiaPress.com.
Or Fayetteville Mafia Press. You want to send them, learn some things, or you want to talk about Twin Peaks or 30-something or some of these other amazing projects that Scott has been a part of and helmed. He's a hell of a guy. And I think you've seen that in this interview here. Scott, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it very, very much.
I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Until the next time, my friend. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to go through this entire broadcast. For Tales from the Late Show, I'm Mike Chisholm.